So this is the start of the chapter on water pollution. So really, we just need to look at the basics of what water pollution is, and I think the pictures kind of speak for themselves. But really, when we're looking at water pollution, it could be any physical or chemical change that causes a water system to be unhealthy. And sadly, many places in the world, river systems become garbage dumps. People have to live in them, usually with poverty. Uh, what's traveling in that water, other than just having dirt and sediment in the water and plastics and stuff like that, is pathogens. So any viruses and bacteria that we don't normally come in contact with, they are coming in contact with on a constant basis. And it's really unhealthy. And you can see ladies filling up a vessel with water. You have people that fish in these waters. You have people that just go and pretty much bathe in these waters. And it's terrible. And where do these really come from? Well, there's really two sources. One is called the point source, and one is called the non-point source. So a point source, best example is that picture right there. Point source means it's coming directly from usually a pipe that is being put into the water stream. So you can see at the bottom chart, you have a factory, you have a water sewage treatment plant. Sadly, factories back in the day used to just dump chemicals into the water system, and we didn't really know any better. One example I can give you is the Passaic River down in near Newark, New Jersey. They had mercury factories, or factories that had mercury inside of them that they would just discharge into the water system. Or any other toxic chemicals that were used for cleaning were put right in. Non-point sources, so here it usually comes in the form of runoff. So you have farms, it rains, that water gets carried into the water system, that adds to pollution, increased nitrogen levels, increased sediment, stuff like that. Feedlots, you have your manure, you have homes, city streets. So we have cars, they have a lot of oil being leaked out of them, that makes its way into the river system. So anything that's really running off into the water system is considered non-point. Okay, our main leading water pollution causes is really agriculture, industry, and just humans in general. But if we look at agricultural activities, this is due to not using sustainable methods, right? It's spraying fertilizer rather than putting it directly into the ground, or using like manure. Those that does not run off that easily. But if we're spraying, especially if we spray right before we know rain is coming, you're gonna have huge amounts running off into the water systems. Industrial facilities, you could think of mining with their sludge ponds. Here's a pipe just discharging a slurry onto the land, and that will make its way into the water system. This picture, right now I cannot remember where it's from, but I believe it was in the Midwest somewhere, and it was a sludge pond that broke loose, and it came down the river system, and it just flooded the backyards of many people's houses and caused huge issues. And then you have, lastly, of human pollution, which is we're either directly dumping into river systems, which a lot of less developed countries are doing and allow to happen, or even in developing countries or developed countries, we have waste that gets thrown out of cars or gets put down a drain. We also have landfills that aren't being capped properly, and the wind can kind of take those off, or even on heavy rains, they can get taken from those areas as well. So there's a lot of stuff that's happening. It's not only one reason for all this water pollution, it's a multitude of things. We talked about fracking, so I'm not going to talk about it again, but that is one way that those chemicals that they're using to pump underground to cause this fracking, or the disruption of rock to extrude that natural gas, that will make its way into this water system. And then if we're pumping that water out, obviously that's not good. We watched the trailer called Gasland. That kind of was a look into the middle of our country and how they're using fracking a lot, but also it's happening in Pennsylvania too. And if you remember that video, people were turning on their taps. The one guy lit his tap on fire. There was so much methane in it. Other people, they had really, really yellowy and terrible water, and they were getting very sick from it. As I said before, one of the main things that we see with water pollution in less developed countries is disease due to pathogens. So this guy's taking a little bath in this dirty water, and he's probably collecting some of the food scraps that are on there to maybe feed him or his family. Here's a kid. See all this garbage in the background. He's drinking from that water. It's quite terrible how much polluted water there is out there that people rely on still to survive. They use it for cooking, even cleaning, bathing. So it's harmful to not only humans but their animals as well that they raise. This is just a laundry list of information on our pollutants. And you can see we have anything from thermal pollution to heavy metals, to sediments. And then if we look on the next page, you have all of your organisms that we look at. Okay. Luckily this year for the AP exam, they're not going to expect you to know any of these. Usually they ask you for one if they ask it on an FRQ, but this year you don't have to. But you see a lot of these areas, they cause diarrhea, and that then leads to a multitude of problems. A lot of problems happen from there. With dehydration, your body's immune system can't keep up, and it just snowballs from there, and people get very, very sick from this. Okay. Our last thing is really looking at stream and lake pollution. So if we have a flowing versus a standing water system, which one do you think would recover faster? The answer always should be flowing. That is because the pollutants won't sit in one area and it won't affect all of the organisms living in that area. Now, it's just moving the pollutants down the river, but it's going to allow, if we stop these pollutants from coming into the water system, then it will allow it to recover faster. Okay, the pollutants will move out. If it's standing and we stop using the pollutants, it's still going to be there, and it's going to take longer for that water system to recover. Okay, how do we impact the effects of pollutants on a flowing water ecosystem? Well, we dam them sometimes. We obviously add to them at times. We add harmful things. We add things that we don't think are that harmful, like runoff of fertilizers, but we know that leads to algal blooms that can have a huge impact on it. And we stop the flow a lot of these water systems, whether it's a dam or siphoning water off of it to use in farms. The slowing of that water system allows pollutants to kind of stay in an area for a longer period of time.